I don't know how to read people. I fell from the 10th floor and became a vegetable. My husband Robert never left my side for 5 years. Then I woke up. The first thing I did was get a divorce. My aging parents threatened to commit suicide and said I was being ungrateful. But it was Robert who pushed me off the building. I opened my eyes. All I could see was the pale ceiling. Then I could hear soft voices outside. I made your favorite. Scrambled eggs with tomatoes. For lunch. Do you want some? The familiar gentle voice sounded like someone was on the phone. Without any disguise. On the other side was a woman's voice on speakerphone flirting. I'm not coming. I'm busy at noon. But I worked so hard to make it. If you don't eat it, it's a waste of my hard work. The man on the phone spoke softly. I heard him walk into the kitchen again. His voice had become a little quieter than before, but he was still oblivious to the world around him. Shall I bring it to you? Yes or no? I miss you. Okay then. The woman on the phone responded reluctantly. But there was a hint of joy in her voice. I moved my stiff fingers. Tried to sit up but felt weak. I couldn't feel anything in my lower body. It was as if I had completely lost feeling. At that moment, the man hummed a song and walked into the bedroom. Without even looking at me lying on the bed. He went straight into the closet and started picking out clothes. I closed my aching eyes, pretending I hadn't woken up. After a while, a strong but unfamiliar perfume hit my nose. Robert seemed to have finished getting dressed and deliberately sprayed himself with perfume. He walked over to me and said in a mean voice, "Honey, I'm leaving now. You stay home and sleep well. Don't worry about me." And then he left. I heard the door close. The lingering fragrance in my nostrils lingered for a long time. It made me sneeze a little. It was from this sneeze that I began to feel better. I felt an itch at the tip of my nose. And then my arms and thighs. It was as if my senses were slowly returning. I tried hard to sit up. But such a simple movement was not easy for someone like me who had been paralyzed in bed for 5 years. Fortunately, there were often no one at home. And I had plenty of time to practice getting up from the bed. It took me a whole week to do it. And it was also this week that I gradually understood what had happened around me during the 5 years I had been in a coma. Robert had a mistress on the side. And replaced her with one or more. I'm not sure. But he never divorced me. And on the surface maintained the image of a good husband. He even makes time to visit my parents every month. My parents don't often visit me. They never liked me when I was little. They were fine with me when I started earning money. But now that I'm a vegetable and can't earn any money, they won't come to see me anymore. The nanny who takes care of me was handpicked by Robert. She doesn't talk much. But she does her job carefully. I guess it's also her credit that I haven't developed any sores after lying in bed for 5 years. Unfortunately, the nanny doesn't seem to be able to speak or hear very well. Because I have heard Robert scold her countless times this week without any concern for her feelings. But she never says a word in return. Even when she washes me, she is as gentle as ever. Of course, she is also the first person to notice that I have woken up. She is alone at home that day, taking care of me while washing me. She writes with her fingertips on my arm. "You're awake, aren't you?" I move my fingertips and pretend I can't feel it. "I am disabled. I won't tell anyone that you are awake." I don't know why she is being so nice to me. So I naturally remained vigilant. But just as she was about to take off my underwear and wash me, I couldn't help but open my eyes. Our eyes met. After a few seconds I raised my hand and wrote the word, "Thank you," in her palm. The nanny told me her name was Mary. 5 years ago, before I became bedridden, she was my student. "You taught me a lot. And I got my diploma from the adult education college. And I got this job. You are my benefactor." Mary said that when she came to apply for the job, she was shocked to see me in bed. And Robert laughed when he saw her secretly wiping her tears. She said that although she could neither speak nor write, she could read lips. Robert never knew about this. He said that a disabled person like me was the most suitable person to take care of you. I also want to. So I stayed. I hooked her little finger. Tears fell involuntarily. Robert. You son of a bitch. You watched me cry. Mary got so upset that she stood up from her chair. She slowly wrote on the palm of my hand, saying that I hadn't been awake for long, and that crying would hurt my eyes. She said, and thoughtfully dimmed the room lights. I asked her, how you found out I had woken up. Mary gave a shy smile. When I was washing you. Your body was so tense. Luckily. Now only Mary is willing to touch my body. That's it. With Mary's help, I began to recover step by step. Getting out of bed. Standing up. Moving my legs and even walking later. I started from eating liquid food to being able to swallow small pieces of food. That's it. 3 whole months passed. I was finally able to walk normally without any help. That night, Mary cried with excitement. She said she had long believed that I would wake up. Because I am a good person. Good people should have good luck. The ridiculous thing is that I have been awake for 3 months. Robert, who lives under the same roof, has not noticed at all. So much so that one time, he was drunk outside, and came home and went to bed. That night, I was already standing at his bedside. He didn't even know. Staring at his defenseless face. Sleeping like a baby. The resentment that had built up in my heart for a long time almost overwhelmed me. 5 years. Exactly 5 years. I may be paralyzed, but I haven't lost my hearing. I know everything he did in this room with his mistress. Thinking about it now makes me feel sick. Really sick. I can't wait to divorce him. But I know I can't be impulsive. Impulsiveness won't solve anything. Before my accident, I still had some savings. Using those savings, I asked Mary to run some errands for me. The first was to buy a new mobile phone. And get a SIM card in Mary's name. 5 years is a long time. I didn't realize that after I bought the phone, I would still need Mary to teach me how to use it. Fortunately, it wasn't difficult to learn. The second thing was to buy a camera. Mary is very handy. After I bought it, she installed it in different hidden places in the house according to my instructions. I really have to admire this when I think about it. Technology has really developed so quickly in the past 5 years. What the camera captures can be connected to the phone at any time and saved. Third, I asked Mary to find a private investigator in her own name, to help me investigate something very important that happened 5 years ago. I want a divorce. I want Robert to be left penniless and pay for everything he has done. Robert is usually not busy at work, but often goes on business trips. He says he is on business trips, but who knows what he is really up to. I never paid attention when I was healthy. Now that I am not well, I naturally care even less. When he is packing to leave the house, Mary helps me slowly stand up from the bed. Teacher Chung, you are walking better and better now. Mary gives me the thumbs up. Probably because I have the conviction of getting a divorce to support me. I have recovered quickly. Although I walk more slowly than normal people. These past 2 days, I have begun to prepare for Mary to take me out for a walk. For the first time in 5 years. I went downstairs. My goal is not great. As long as I can walk 2 laps in the small garden at the bottom of the building, that's fine. But this is such a small goal. For ordinary people, it is extremely simple. But for me, it seems like an impossible task. First, I changed my clothes. My fingers. I can't use any of the 5 fingers to exert force in the same direction. They were stiff as planks of wood. So even the humiliating task of pulling up my pants still requires Mary's help. Then there's changing shoes. I can't use any strength in my toes either. With difficulty, I control my knees and lift my feet. I still need Mary's help to get the shoes on. Finally, it's time to go out. When I open the door with my own hands and put one foot out the moment, I almost cry out in tears. Mary's arm supporting me is shaking. As I eagerly hold on to the wall, 1 step at a time, walking forcefully down the stairs. She kept tugging slightly on my hand, reminding me again and again to be careful. And careful. This is not home. Home has carpet. If I fall, it will take me a long time to get up. Outside, this cement floor. If I don't walk carefully, I could lose my front teeth. Luckily, God was still helping. The first time around, I walked very slowly but very well. Although occasionally I almost fell straight. I managed to stand up in the end. But God never liked to see me well. Mary followed behind me, with her arms outstretched, keeping a distance from me to protect me, in case I fell. And when I got to the second lap, a stone under my foot caught my foot. I leaned over and fell straight down. Mary quickly reached out to catch me, but I landed squarely on top of her. For 5 years I have survived on a liquid diet. My weight is already less than 2/3 of what it used to be. But it was a pile of flesh and bone that crashed onto Mary. I could hear Mary's hand bones crack, as if they had broken. I was so panicked that I put both hands on the ground to stand up. But I couldn't muster any strength. My forehead was covered in sweat from the tossing and turning. In the end, Mary gritted her teeth and used one hand to forcefully drag her body out from under me. Only then did we barely manage to separate. I looked at Mary's obviously broken wrist bone, and my eyes reddened. "Does it hurt? Mary? Can you move?" Mary's forehead was covered in beads of sweat. She bit her lower lip and nodded firmly at me. She made a mouth shape to comfort me and said, "Don't worry. I'll be fine." She struggled to stand up from the ground. And then, with just one hand, she tried to pull me up. But I was weak. I could only kneel on the ground, adjusting my direction. With my hands on Mary's thighs, I was barely able to stand up from the ground, in a position like a dog. A few passers-by walked past sporadically. It wasn't really a shame. It's just that after I got up, I couldn't stop crying. I used to be a high-paid special education teacher. I had dignity. I lived with dignity. But now, just to walk, I've already fallen to my knees on the pavement. And all this is thanks to Robert. I hate him so much it makes my teeth itch. My hands are shaking as I support Mary's arms. "You need to go to the hospital. A broken wrist is a serious matter and can't be delayed." But Mary doesn't feel comfortable leaving me at home alone. I pat her shoulder with a smile to reassure her. "It's fine. It's only one afternoon. I just didn't expect that Mary's absence would make the house so lively this afternoon." I asked Mary to leave a message for Robert as usual, excusing myself for the afternoon. I told her to say that I had broken my wrist. Robert recovered quickly from his injury, without any suspicion. He just said that he would deduct 1 day's salary. I transferred some money from my account to Mary's. She thanked me profusely. She sent me upstairs and didn't leave until I was settled. Not long after I left, there was a commotion at the door. I was sitting on the sofa playing with my phone, and I heard voices coming from the elevator. My first reaction was to get up and walk back. But I was too slow. I barely managed to stand in the doorway of the bedroom the moment the door opened. From here, I could just see Robert bringing the woman into the house. It wasn't the first time I knew Robert had cheated on me. But now I watched him perform a scene of intimacy with another woman in my home. I couldn't help but feel sick. I dragged my still painful leg back to the room, step by step. I climbed into my single hospital bed. I stared at the ceiling and listened to the developments outside. The woman seemed to be no stranger to my home. She smiled and suggested, "Brother, let's go into the room." Robert was amused by her, and half-jokingly asked, "Why? Aren't you afraid anymore? Last time you said my wife was lying in that room. Aren't you embarrassed?" "You don't know. After trying it once last time, I've never been able to forget that feeling. Let's go." This flirtatious and coquettish voice is irresistible to any man. Sure enough, Robert surrendered directly, and embraced the woman and walked over this way. Okay. I really can't do anything about you. You little demon. I'll do whatever you say." I never thought I would be humiliated like this in my life. My husband was having fun in my bed with his mistress. And I was staring at the ceiling with my eyes wide open. I didn't make a sound. I listened to every word the two of them said to each other, laughing and joking. Afterwards, I felt an uncontrollable urge to vomit. I wanted to throw up. So I really threw up. I suddenly sat bolt upright on the single bed. I looked like a zombie. Then, the sound of the woman I was enjoying screaming in horror pierced the sky. The man, also panicking, turned his head. The three of us stared at each other. In the end, Robert swallowed hard and shouted like a possessed man. "Honey." I interrupted him with a dry retch. Then I sat up straight and waved at him, continuing. "You continue. I'll wait for you outside." Robert. There probably isn't a more generous original wife in the world than me. After 5 years of paralysis, when I woke up and caught my husband in the act of cheating for the first time, I was able to say, "I'll wait for you outside," in such a generous and decent way. Robert was so scared by me that he lost his strength and watched as I got out of bed by myself. His face changed dramatically, as if he had seen a ghost. Then immediately, cold sweat broke out on his forehead. And it hit him. He ran from the bed naked. Reached out to hold me, but I avoided him. "Honey. Let me explain," Robert said dryly. "I'll listen to your explanation. Get dressed. And go outside." "Robert. We need to sort out our old problems and our new problems." I sat on the sofa, playing with my phone, and thinking about which friend to call first, to let them know the good news that I had finally woken up. To be honest, I didn't want to make things difficult for Robert over the divorce. As long as he agreed to divorce me, I would definitely not make things difficult for him. But after he got dressed and came out with me, it was as if he had lost his memory of the past 5 years. He threw himself at me, trying to show me how much he loved me. "Honey. You're finally awake. When did you wake up? Why didn't you tell me?" I admired his acting skills. He gave a small smile and raised his voice. "Hey girl. You're not coming out, are you?" The girl slowly walked out of the room. "Honey." Robert stared at me nervously. I raised my hand. "Don't call me honey. I can't take it." "Robert. You have to admit to the affair." Robert bit his lip and nodded firmly. "I admit it." "That's fine. Divorce. I'll take the house. You move out." I was very organized. Robert looked at me with a sad face. "Honey. Can we not get divorced? Do you know how long you've been in bed? All these years I've been the one taking care of you. Just look at all the hard work I've done over the years. Don't divorce me. Let's just forget about the affair. You've been a vegetable for so many years. I've needed someone to take care of my physical needs." I knew he was being brazen. But when I heard what he said, the little girl standing next to me widened her eyes. "Robert. That's not what you said. You said you loved me the most. And the reason you won't divorce her as a vegetable is for the sake of your reputation." When did I say that? I looked at the two people in front of me, fighting like dogs. And I almost laughed out loud. "Sister. You really believe what he said? 5 years ago. He also said he loved me the most. But in the end, he took advantage of me being paralyzed in bed and fooled around with other women." The young girl was so insulted by my 2 or 3 words that she couldn't hold her head up. She could only stare at Robert with wide eyes. Seeing that he had no intention of defending himself, she also slapped Robert directly in the face. "I see that I was wrong about you. You scumbag." Then she turned around and ran straight out the door. The young lady is still a young lady. She is always so gullible. She really thought that Robert had to maintain the marriage because he loved me. At this point, there was no one else in the house. Robert wiped away a tear and stood up from the floor. "Jenny. Don't get a divorce. I have taken care of you for 5 years. And everyone can see it. Even if you want to divorce me, if you succeed, people will still point their fingers and call you ungrateful. Why do it?" I sat on the sofa and smiled at him. I understood that he was threatening me by squeezing my weak spot. But he was wrong. I am a person who has experienced life and death. A person who has walked around the edge of hell and come back. I am not afraid of any threat. I am only afraid that my revenge is not severe enough. "Robert. I will tell you today that I will definitely get a divorce." Robert probably did not expect that after 5 years. My temper had grown. He rushed up and squeezed my neck. His eyes were red as if he could not wait to strangle me to death. I only felt in an instant that the breath at the tip of my nose was faint. And the feeling of death instantly engulfed me. This feeling is so familiar. I struggled with all my strength. But I was brought back to my senses by the doorbell ringing at the door after a few struggles. However, Robert didn't care. He still reached out and grabbed my neck, looking like a possessed man. Then, Mary used her own key to open the door, and was shocked by the scene in front of her. But she quickly reacted, and grabbed something on the table, and gave Robert a hard slap on the back of the head. Mary used her intact hand, so the blow was quite strong. And Robert stumbled back 2 steps, his eyes flashing. He let go of me, and I gasped for breath, and pulled out my mobile to call the police. "Come here." Even in a daze, Robert could see what I was doing, and I had already dialed the emergency number. "Police. My husband tried to murder me. Please come quickly." It was just a matter of seconds before the police arrived. But it wasn't the police. Who came? It was my parents. I was sitting on the sofa, thinking about what had happened, and I decided that I should call them. So while Robert was getting dressed in the room, I called them for the first time. When my father answered the phone, he thought he heard wrong. He only heard Robert's voice on the phone. But then he suddenly shouted, "Son-in-law." I felt a chill go down my spine. Without saying a word, I hung up the phone. I didn't think they would come at this late hour. When my parents entered the room, Mary was nervously protecting me. She had been hit hard. Robert was sitting on the sofa and had not recovered yet. However, the more infuriating thing was just beginning. My mother's first words after entering the room were not concerned about me, but instead she stared at Robert, who was covering his head, and asked what had happened. Robert had always been a good son-in-law in front of him, and now he was even more aggrieved to be concerned about him. "Mom. I'm fine. I just got hit on the back of the head." "Who hit you?" "Jenny. You hit me." "Why did you hit me so hard?" My mother glared at me in a strange way, and the way she spoke made people doubt that Robert was her real son. I hugged Mary without saying a word. I didn't ask them to come over for any sentimental family moments. Just get a divorce and divorce it is. You must talk in front of everyone to make sure you understand, to avoid confusion in the future. It wasn't Jenny. It was the mute nanny. Robert pointed his finger at Mary. My mother is a shrew. As soon as she heard that the nanny had hurt her son-in-law, she couldn't let it go. She rushed up and snatched Mary from my arms. She kept muttering, and she mercilessly hit her with her hands. "You're a mute. You're lucky to be paid to take care of my daughter. How dare you hit someone?" Mary desperately used her back to block my mother's fists. She held me with her arms around my chest, in case I got hit too. I wanted to take the beating for her, but I was too weak to even break free from her embrace. "Why are you glaring at me? You still plan to take the side of this mute? She's just a nanny. She's taken care of you for so many years." My mother looked at my bloodshot eyes, scolded me sternly but with a weak tone. "They may hate me, but I became a teacher through my own hard work, and found a man with decent conditions through my own hard work. They are afraid of me. He works hard. What does he work hard for? Has he taken care of me all these years?" I finally exploded. If it were 5 years ago, I definitely wouldn't have had the courage to yell at them like this. They have imprinted the feeling of being unloved on me since I was young. That's why I'm afraid of them. But now I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid at all. My mom was stunned by my yelling. Took a step back but then reacted. "Why doesn't he work hard? Where else would the money come from to pay the nanny? Didn't he raise you? The nanny is paid to do a job. Do you really think she is devoted to you?" When she said this, Mary's eyes flickered. She hugged me tightly and then shook her head desperately, as if she was afraid that I would listen to my mother. But I was clear-headed. Clearer than ever. "He is hypocritical. He is afraid." I shouted at the top of my voice. "I want a divorce." "What is he afraid of?" "Beishing is being filial." "You heartless bastard. What are you talking about? You want a divorce. You got a divorce. Can you find another Beishing who is so devoted to you?" My mother still wants to hit me. But it's too late. There are police outside knocking on the door. They shout, "Ms. Ching. Open the door." Mary protects me, while rubbing her small steps to open the door. When the police walk in, They are confused by the situation. What is going on? I'm not afraid when there are uniforms on guard. I poked my head out from behind Mary and put my arm around her shoulders to protect her behind me. Comrade policeman. My husband was caught cheating on me and tried to kill me to keep me quiet. My friend beat him up. Robert had already come up with a good excuse by now. He held my mother's hand and wouldn't let go. With a look of grievance. Comrade policeman. Don't believe what she says. It was this man who suddenly rushed into my house and started throwing things at me. The policeman frowned. And looked at me. And then at Robert. You two are husband and wife. And these two are my mother-in-law and father-in-law. Robert actively explained. And looked like a good citizen. The policeman suddenly realized. And began to persuade me in front of him. Girl. Look. Your parents are on his side. If there is anything at home that you can't solve, you have to tell the truth. I didn't expect the policeman I called to help would take Robert's side. I just felt a headache. Shake off Robert and rush over to hold my hand. Which I want to make up. Pointed his finger behind the TV. Comrade policeman. I have evidence. Mary understood. She was also panicked. Her hands were sweating. But she trusted me. I didn't take out the camera from under the TV until I signaled. There is evidence in it that he wants to kill me. And I pointed to the direction of the room again. Mary ran back in. After a while, she took out another camera. There is the whole process of his cheating. I can hand them over. But I hope that comrade policeman can return them to me after use. I still need them to apply for divorce. Robert obviously didn't expect me to have a surveillance camera at home. And suddenly turned pale. Without thinking. He knelt down and begged me. Wife. You can't do this. I'll divorce you. You can't ruin me like this. I shook off his hands. Gnashing my back teeth. And tried hard to maintain a vicious smile at the corners of my mouth. What do you mean ruin me? Have you forgotten that 5 years ago? You pushed me off the 10th floor. My voice was not loud. But I made sure everyone there could hear these words. The policeman stared at me in disbelief. You're telling the truth. He really pushed you off the building. Then this is a criminal case. You can be sentenced to prison. As soon as he heard the word prison, Robert rolled off the floor and tried to run out. But he was no match for the policeman. He was stopped before he reached the door. I'm a witness. I even hired a private detective a few days ago to find other evidence. The lead policeman waved his hand. What's the point of hiring a private detective? Just call the police. We'll open a case for you. Robert was taken away by the police. He was charged with attempted murder and causing serious bodily harm. In the end, he ended up spending some time in the police station. My parents stood awkwardly in my living room and saw the police officers off. I didn't give them a second glance. I simply told Mary to send all the videos taken over the past few days to Robert's company email address. Being punished by the law is nothing. That's the price he should pay. Being pointed at behind his back for the rest of his life is the punishment I'll give him. Seeing me like this, the old couple shook like two sieves right in front of me. Jenny. Mom. You don't seem to have any serious injuries. Mom will go first then. You don't need to see me off. I pretended not to hear. Until they were about to walk out. I finally spoke. Apologizing. My mother looked back in shock. As if she hadn't heard what I was saying. Apologize to Mary. I repeated it again. My mother was first indignant. But then she submitted to my stern gaze and smiled at Mary apologetically. Mary. I'm sorry. Auntie is in a bad mood today. I hit you. And made you suffer. Mary grabbed my arm. And shook her head slowly. From today onwards. You two must not appear before me again. 2,000 yuan per month for living expenses. I will transfer it directly to your cards. This is so bad. My mother gave a fake smile twice. There is nothing bad about it. You look down on me. I can't stand you either. There is no need for you to stick together. I remain cold. If you two die, I will take care of you both. Consider it a trade for the fact that you two gave birth to me. Get out. With the sound of the door slamming, I rested my head on Mary's shoulder. I still couldn't help shedding a few tears. But I felt a sense of relief. Robert and I had divorced in prison. He thought there would be no evidence of the incident 5 years ago when he pushed me off the balcony. But I hired a private investigator and the police were very helpful. They found a supermarket that was opening next to my house at the time. The supermarket hired several drones with cameras for commemorative photos. 2 of them circled the front of my building. And were about to fly behind the supermarket to take pictures. When they captured a clear image of Robert pushing me off the building. And even caught his face. I also leaked the video of Robert cheating at home to his company. Which, without knowing which god he had offended, had the girl in the video blacked out. And posted it online. For a while, Robert, as a scumbag of the new era, caused a heated debate on the internet. When the wall falls, everyone pushes. Some people saw that this matter had gone viral. And then the video of Robert killing someone was posted again. After sorting out the timeline, Robert and the other 2 people became complete pariahs. The key point is, public opinion was in uproar. Even the matter of setting a prison term for Robert was affected. He was sentenced directly to 15 years in prison. Did you come here deliberately to laugh at me? Robert's life in prison was not going well. The day I went to visit him, he had injuries around the corners of his eyes and mouth. It was obvious that he had been beaten up badly. And I just sat opposite him through the glass and laughed. Before I came in, I was still his wife. The prison guard told me that when they examined Robert before he entered, they found that he was impotent. I think it was probably the day the police took him away that I scared him. He was such a self-important person. Being thrown in jail and having people gossip about him was nothing. I never thought that now he wouldn't even be able to use that thing. It's kind of retribution. But these past 3 months have been more enjoyable for me than the past few years combined. Under Mary's careful care, I've actually put on a bit of weight. Although I'm not back to the shape I was in 5 years ago. At least I look healthier now. I have you to thank for that. My old school even contacted me. And said they want to rehire me. There's no one who better represents our school than you. I'll pay you double your salary. With 6 insurances and 2 bonuses. You can also leave early. What do you say? With such good conditions, I have no reason not to accept. Why should I take your jokes? If it weren't for the divorce agreement that requires your signature, I wouldn't even be here. I wouldn't want to see you either. I mocked. You. Robert was so angry that he shook his finger at my nose but couldn't say a single complete sentence. And as usual, I played it down. In the face of his anger and resentment. What's wrong with me? I should have killed you. Robert slammed his fist against the glass in front of him. His eyes were red and glaring at me. I laughed and slapped my hand. Agreeing with him. Yes. You said you pushed me off the 10th floor. But I'm just paralyzed. Why is that? My smile instantly disappeared. Like a face. I leaned close to Robert on the other side of the glass. It wasn't as if the heavens were looking down on me. He left me alive because he couldn't bear to see a good person like me suffer. Don't you agree? Leaving a final question unanswered, I took the divorce agreement he signed. And left the prison directly without looking back. On the way home from prison, Mary suddenly told me that she wanted to take me on a trip. She was in a hurry to write it down on paper for me. Saying that I should go traveling before I started my real job. You still walk slowly. Traveling will do you good. I sat in the back seat, fiddling with my computer, glanced at the words on her paper, and just smiled faintly without saying anything. But Mary didn't give up. She kept writing. Swishing. Swishing. When she finished, she held the paper up in front of me. I've saved some money over the past 5 years. I'll take you with me. Who could refuse a cute little girl with big eyes who says she'll take you on a trip with her own savings? My heart softened and I could only nod in agreement. Okay. So where do you want to go? This question obviously struck a chord with Mary. She gave a sly smile. And 2 words appeared on the paper. Dolly. I suddenly remembered my days as a teacher before. The little girl was the monitor of that special class. We were best friends. Many of the special kids were orphans abandoned at the orphanage. The little girl was no exception. There was once a couple from Dolly who wanted to adopt her, but who would have thought that the little girl hiding behind me. Would refuse. The orphanage director was beside herself with worry. But no matter how she reasoned with her, the little girl just hid behind me and refused to come out. Holding onto the corner of my skirt with her tiny hand. And stubbornly glaring at everyone who tried to pull her out. There was nothing I could do. So I had to take her to the office alone. And ask her why she didn't want to leave with her new parents. As soon as I asked, the little girl's eyes sparkled with tears. She couldn't speak and couldn't hear very well. So she just gave me signs with her hands. 2 days ago, I had just taught her these signs. Teacher. Didn't you say you were my mother? I froze at her question. I remembered what I had said on my first day at work when I took over this class. Hello everyone. From today onwards, I will be your homeroom teacher. My surname is Ching. Of course. If any of you would like, I can protect you like a mother. Is that okay? The little girl nodded her head the hardest at that time. I thought she just liked me. But I didn't realize that such a simple greeting had been remembered by this little child. Later, I still sent the little girl to her real parents. I promised her that she could come back to me when she grew up. Unexpectedly. After she grew up, she even had the opportunity to save my life.